I think one of the most interesting things about the internet is the fact that it's completely revolutionized the way that people are able to achieve fame. Back in the old days, you had to be able to have some kind of talent in a particular industry, being a good singer, musician, actor, that sort of thing. But we live in an era now where people are able to become famous by doing something as simple as recording a 7-second clip of themselves in their bedroom doing something random. And this has evolved to such a point where people are able to create entire careers, whole companies, out of their internet fame. In 2023, it has become easier than ever to develop your own fan base, to have something that a large group of people will remember you for better or worse. And I really do mean it when I say that all you have to do is record yourself for 7 seconds doing something random to achieve a level of popularity. Because all over the internet, especially on YouTube, there exist many examples of people who have done exactly that. And while that was the case mostly in the early days of the website, that's still true even up to the years as recent as 2020.
Son, have you been reading heresy recently? Unacceptable.
This simple 6-second video of a guy in a knight costume was posted to YouTube on January 24th, 2020, and very quickly it gained traction, becoming a viral clip on many social media sites such as Twitter, Reddit, and of course YouTube. And with this newfound popularity, the world was introduced to Bread Boys. Despite this small channel being created in 2016, it wasn't until 4 years later when that simple clip gave the channel any sort of momentum, and the people behind the channel began to gain people's attention, and so they used this momentum to kickstart a long series of short videos expanding on the basic premise of that original viral hit. In doing so, capitalizing on it proved to be a very successful strategy, as within only a few months, and with only a handful of videos posted, the channel would surpass the 100,000 subscriber mark, and only a few months after that, Bread Boys would cross 1 million subscribers. Clearly, there's something about Bread Boys that resonated with people, and on a quick glance, you may think you figured out why. The channel earned its initial popularity from a single joke that they've run with for the past 3 years. However, phrasing it like that makes the channel sound like a one-trick pony, banking on the one thing that they're known for to stay relevant. And while that is true to an extent, that isn't the full story. Since its start, the Bread Boys series has expanded on its original concept, and in the process created its own little universe that I've found myself absolutely captivated by in the last few months. And it's led me down a bit of a rabbit hole, one that shows that Bread Boys is a lot more than just a simple 6-second joke, and it's something I want to see if I can try to explain in this video. So if you have absolutely nothing better to do with your time, join me as I dig deeper into the Bread Boys saga and try to figure out just what it all means, and the many important life lessons I'm sure we can learn from it. So make yourself a bread sandwich and get comfortable, because this is a very unironic analysis of Bread Boys. This is the kind of content I make now. What am I doing with my life? Okay, so, before we get into the nitty-gritty details, we should first give a quick rundown of what exactly Bread Boys is all about. Bread Boys follows the adventures of father and son, two immortal Templar knights from the Crusades who now exist in the modern day. Each video typically takes place from a first-person perspective, where the viewer sees the events of each clip play out through Son's eyes. This isn't always the case, as there are many instances where the video is viewed from a third-person angle or a first-person perspective from Father's point of view. More often than not, though, we see things play out through Son's eyes. Each video usually takes place in a similar fashion. Son will typically do something to upset his dad, which will usually end with him getting shot by Father with his shotgun. This is the case for most of the early videos in the series, and while this is a formula that isn't completely gone, many of the later videos would deviate substantially from this general formula. Just like with the formula in the first dozen or so videos, the character traits of both father and son start out as relatively basic, and as the series goes on, they begin to become a bit more fleshed out. Starting at the beginning, all we really learn is that father, being a devout Catholic, tries to guide son in the ways of Catholicism. Son, however, is a heretic, almost consistently engaging in reading heresy and watching anime, two pastimes which father heavily discourages. And it's this little dynamic that sticks around for a bit, and it actually leads into the series' first small mini-arc. For the first 10 or so videos, we're shown this continuous back and forth between the two characters, son trying to get away with reading heresy or watching anime, and father shooting him in the face for it. But then you get to the video titled Son, They've Taken Jerusalem. In the video, father enters the frame and relays to son that the holy city of Jerusalem has been taken by, and I quote, the goddamn weebs. Father implores that son help defend the Holy Land, to which this exchange takes place.
Son, we need your help. Take the sword.
But Dad, I'm a heretic.
It doesn't matter! Defend the Holy Land!
You know what?
Now, while this may seem mostly insignificant within the broader context of the series, it actually does mean a lot for the direction it would go afterwards, as while his heretical hobbies would still remain an important part of his character, from this point onward, Son would mostly be portrayed as a man of the Christian faith, joining Father in his religious practices. His newfound Christianity is actually backed up in the very next video, where Son is apparently supposed to take a trip to Jerusalem, which he doesn't take only because of COVID.
So, Son, how's your trip to Jerusalem going?
I had to cancel it, Father.
How come?
I'm not going out in quarantine.
You better go, Son.
What are you going to do about it? You can't even get to me.
Turn around.
Hey, what the hell? Oh my gosh, no!
I briefly mentioned earlier that both Father and Son are immortal, and while this isn't immediately revealed in the series, it does quickly become canon that both Father and Son are incapable of dying, explaining why Son is able to survive getting shot so often. But an interesting little detail that Bread Boys kind of skims over is one that's dropped in early videos. To explain what I mean, in the video titled Son, You Dropped the Nuggies, Father and Son go to McDonald's to get chicken nuggets, but upon getting into the car, Father says,
How do I drive this thing?
You don't know how to, what?
Where are the horses?
You use an engine.
Since when have they had engines?
Like about 200 years ago.
Oh, okay, let's go.
The fact that Father doesn't know how cars work is interesting, as being an immortal person, you'd expect him to have at least some familiarity with them, or at the very least know that they don't use horses. A similar instance comes up in the video titled Father, Where is Mother, where in the first few seconds, this exchange takes place.
Father?
Yes, Son.
Oh, what are you watching?
I'm watching a Bible documentary, as usual. Gotta catch up.
How is it?
It's pretty good. You should watch it.
Father saying "gotta catch up" in this video, along with his inexperience with cars, leads me to theorize that at some point prior to the beginning of the series, both Father and Son weren't around for a set period of time, or they had spent a significant amount of time somewhere where they couldn't keep up with historical events, and that the videos take place soon after they return. Where exactly they were and how long they were gone is currently unknown, and hey, maybe I'm just reading too deep into this, but that's what it sounds like to me. But anyways, moving on, something that's kind of important to the overall Bread Boys lore is how, as the series continues, it begins to introduce different members of the Bread Boys extended family. And despite none of them getting nearly as much screen time as our main characters, most of them actually contain a lot of significance when it comes to how their very existence influences both Father and Son. So let's briefly go over every family member that we've seen up to this point. The first one that we meet is Cousin Richard, who makes his debut in the video Father, Cousin Richard Survived. Now this video, just in general, is quite important to the Bread Boys lore. In it, we see a flashback that goes back to 700 years ago, where we see Father, Son, and Cousin Richard taking back Jerusalem. Richard, in the aftermath, introduces Son to the concept of heresy, serving as an explanation of Son's fascination with anime in the present. This video also reveals that, despite Father killing Cousin Richard in the past, he ends up returning in the present, revealing that, just like the other two, he as well has the power of immortality. And beyond that, a notable detail, albeit a relatively insignificant one, is that out of everyone in the family, Cousin Richard is the only one that does not wear a helmet. The second family member we meet is Father's father, which takes place in the video Bread Boys, but Father's father appears. Despite making infrequent appearances, when he does appear, Father's father is shown to be a very powerful individual, being able to teleport and kill Father in the span of a second. Interestingly enough, Father's father ends up going through a slight change as the series goes on. One of his characteristics is doing very little talking, and in the first few videos he shows up in, when he does talk, his voice sounds fairly normal.
I just don't understand. When you punish him, you gotta use a better weapon.
Later on, though, his voice changes to represent his powerful status, becoming far deeper and almost demonic in the way it sounds.
I'm proud of you, son. You almost scratched me.
Maybe he's deliberately changing his voice, maybe it's a retcon, who's to say. The final family member that we have seen thus far is Father's brother, Uncle, who is teased at the end of the video Son, We Have a New House, and makes his first proper appearance in Father vs. Uncle. Uncle is primarily characterized through his love of cats and tendency to remain completely silent, and honestly there's not much to say about Uncle, as the only thing of note really concerning his character is his ongoing dislike of his own father, leading to an ongoing feud between the two. Now, while we just went over all the family members we've seen so far, there's actually one more person that we have to discuss. That being Mother. Mother is exactly what she sounds like, Son's maternal figure. However, unlike all the other family members, we've never actually seen her, and the reason for this can be pieced together through a couple different videos. The first time she's mentioned is in Father, Where is Mother?, where Son asks Father what happened to her, with Father trying to dodge the question before giving him a very angry response.
Can you actually, please tell me what happened to my mother this time?
She took everything! It's dead!
This gives us the idea that Mother is a very contentious figure in Father's eyes, but we don't actually get an explanation as to what happened to her here. No, that answer comes in the video Father, You Get No Maidens, where at the end of the video, in a fit of anger, Son gives us this little outburst.
You know what else went overboard? When you hung your wife from the Eiffel Tower in Paris! You piece of shit!
She was your mother!
I wasn't even born! I was spawned by the God Christ himself!
She loved you very much.
And I didn't even know her.
This basically gives us all we need to know about the character of Mother. She was killed by Father, did not come back to life, indicating that she was not immortal, and more importantly, that Son himself was not born in the traditional sense, instead literally being spawned by Jesus Christ himself. And there we go. That's pretty much every member of the Bread Boys family that we know of at this point in time. I mean, I guess we could also include the weapon door, this sentient door that gives people weapons, but it only appears in 2 videos, so it's not that big of a deal. One of the more important aspects of the Bread Boys lore is the near constant introduction of special abilities and powers that Father and Son have at their disposal. Like I said earlier, we learned pretty early on that Father and Son, as well as pretty much the rest of their family, are immortal. However, over the course of the series, we see them begin to use new types of powers, and in actuality, the list of powers they can use is quite extensive. At this point in the series, as far as we've been shown, the types of powers that both Father and Son have include, but are not limited to, immortality, teleportation, pyrokinesis, electrokinesis, chronokinesis, healing powers, turning into marketable plushies, reality-bending powers, whatever that means, solar system powers, whatever that means, damning people to hell, never blinking, forcing people into ASMR mode, stealing people's ability to talk, literal finger guns, and last but not least, becoming a Super Saiyan. The existence of these powers alone is quite intriguing, especially considering how there doesn't seem to be a limit to the kinds of abilities that the Bread Boys can suddenly find themselves with. But what's even more interesting is how a few videos introduce ways in which their powers can be influenced. To show what I mean, we have to take a look at the video Son, You're Too Powerful. In the video, Son builds himself a suit of armor made entirely of anime bitches, which seemingly gives him a major boost in strength, being able to shake off Father's bullets, apparently hardly even feeling their impact in the first place. This video presents not only the idea that the Bread Boys' powers can be altered, but also that, in this universe, anime itself is actually a very powerful element, and this is a concept that is revisited in later videos. In another instance, titled Father, You're Too Powerful, Father himself dons the anime armor, and instantly gains a massive boost in strength, once again finding himself immune to Son's gunfire, further reinforcing the secret power that anime has in this world. Now, being real here, there's actually a surprising amount of little lore tidbits I picked up as I was going through each video, and a lot of them I wanted to talk about, but I couldn't really find a way to naturally work them into the video. So in this segment, we're just going to briefly discuss a bunch of small stuff that comes up in specific videos that I think is worth mentioning. In an early video titled Son, I Told You to Stay Out of This VC, we can see Father hanging out in a Discord chat with a bunch of other people whose usernames are simply titled Crusader.
Oh, shit.
What are you doing in here?
Nothing.
I told you to stay out of this chat.
No, please. Dad, I'm
That's
sorry.
it. Boys,
This leads me to posit the theory that these are individuals very similar to Father, them also being immortal Templar Knights. However, weirdly, these Crusaders are never once mentioned again, and in a much later video titled Son, I Hate Facebook, Father explicitly states that he doesn't have any friends. So either this early video with the Crusaders is non-canon, or something happened between them and Father in the time span between both videos. Or maybe they just didn't plan these things out in advance. But that just sounds unlikely. In the video Son Not Now, Son, in a panic, explains to Father that the two of them owe a large amount of money to both an unspecified cartel and the IRS. Now this actually becomes a recurring element in the series, as several videos later, when the boys are forced to move houses, it's explained that the house they live in now was in fact stolen due to their immense IRS debt.
We have to pay the IRS!
Pay the IRS on what?
Look around, Father. Do you not see this house we're in?
Yeah, I do, and we stole it.
Well, you didn't think that would stop Al Capone from getting caught, did ya? But look, they got his ass real quick when he didn't pay up.
This conflict comes to a head in the video Father versus the IRS, where the two are invaded by a squadron of IRS soldiers who come to get them for their debt and have to fight them off. I wrote IRS soldiers in the script, and I'm just now realizing that's probably not a thing. Something we've established by now is Son's interest in anime, and this leads him to, at one point, spend all of his money to buy an anime plushie, and this specific plushie kinda becomes their own recurring character, reappearing in the video Son, I've Been Turned Into a Marketable Plushie, where we learn that the plushie is actually fully sentient.
Hello, Son. Uwu? Are you okay down there?
But despite being aware of her being a fully living creature, she ends up with quite the gruesome fate, as in Father They Are Special to Me, at the end of the video, that same plushie ends up getting tossed into a microwave.
Your girlfriend.
No, she's not! Please!
She's getting the microwave treatment.
Don't put her in the microwave!
As we see more of these characters, it becomes increasingly apparent, and even outright stated at a point, that Father is very unstable, suffering from multiple mental illnesses, which require him to take medication in order to keep in check. This gives us videos like Bread Boys But Father Was Off His Meds, which gives us a clear idea of what happens to Father when he doesn't take his medication. However, this also leads to interesting videos like Son, Are You Real?, which presents the idea that Son himself may not even be real, and is actually just a complex delusion created in Father's head. And if that's the case, then it just kinda leads you down this whole rabbit hole of theories, because if Son isn't actually real, then it makes you wonder what other aspects of this universe are completely fabricated. Like, is Father actually an immortal knight from the Crusades, or is that a fantasy made up in his unstable mind? You know, that's actually kind of dark when you think about it, especially when you consider the whole mother thing. So what have we learned so far about the Bread Boys world? Immortal knights from the Crusades exist, superpowers exist, sentient toys exist, and anime is the most powerful element on the planet. But before we wrap things up here, there's one last thing I want to discuss regarding this series. And just to be clear here, this last talking point is entirely theoretical on my part, because there is no direct confirmation for this theory I developed as I was working my way through these videos. This theory of mine being, the entire Bread Boys series exists inside a computer simulation. Now I know that sounds really random, but believe me, there is a bizarre amount of evidence to suggest that the entire Bread Boys universe exists inside a simulation. Let me explain. The first time we're clued into this being a possibility is in the video Son, Why Am I Lagging?, where both Father and Son quite suddenly begin to lag in real life.
Wait, I have to return to hold on a second.
Alright, have fun.
What the?
What just happened?
I was right there!
It's never explicitly stated that the Bread Boys live in a simulation, not in this video or any other, but instances like this do begin to imply something of that nature as they keep occurring. One of the more direct implications comes from the video Bread Boys But We Got Nerfed, where both Father and Son's regular weapons get replaced with Nerf guns, leading to a scene where Son literally checks the patch notes.
I'm checking the patch notes!
I can barely move, hurry up!
I'm here, look what he just said!
What? God! Father!
Your actions are unforgivable. As for patch 4.12, the Bread Boys shall be nerfed.
And even in the ones that aren't directly about this possible simulation theory, there are these occasional small moments in certain videos where something will happen that still hints at it.
I can't believe he drank all the milk!
But if this theory is true, if the Bread Boys do live in a simulation, it would actually make sense when you think about the fact that they have powers. I mean, it's a simulation, not reality, so supernatural stuff like that is possible. It would also explain their immortality. When they die, they just respawn. Like it's a video game or something. Bread Boys is such a funny little channel for me because it somehow managed to gain so much attention over such a simple little concept, and it's something that they've just been running with and expanding upon for the last 3, almost 4 years. To be real here for a second, in a way, there's something I really admire about Bread Boys, because their simple 2-minute video skits are the kind of thing you used to see a lot of on early YouTube, and given how corporate the site has become and with how homogenous much of the content on the platform can feel at times, you don't really see much of this kind of character-focused stuff done anymore. And I don't know, there's just something really charming about this little series about two immortal knights that doesn't take itself seriously, just trucking along. If you've never checked their channel out before and this video has piqued your interest, I recommend you check them out. They have a certain kind of humor that probably won't appeal to everybody, so it might not be your cup of tea. In the meantime though, as for me, I'll just be here anticipating whatever direction they decide to go next. And I mean, hey, if you don't like them, there's always Bagel Boys.